Hello, my name is Frank. I'm going to tell you about the terrifying moments I experienced in the cursed dorm room during my university years. Here's the dark and chilling tale. One of the darkest memories of my university life occurred in the cursed dorm room where my friends and I moved in together. That dormitory building was one of the oldest and most mysterious structures on campus. At first, our room seemed fine, with no apparent issues. However, we began to experience strange and unsettling events over time. We would wake up to find peculiar marks under our beds and symbols on the walls that we couldn't decipher. Every night, we would be startled awake by deep and unsettling noises. A sense of fear permeated the atmosphere of our room, making it impossible for us to sleep together with our roommates. One night, I had a bizarre and chilling dream. In the dream, I saw a dark figure standing in the middle of our room. Its face was obscured, appearing only as a dark shadow. I made eye contact with it in the dream, and it gave me a chilling gaze that froze me to my core. When I woke up, I believed that the figure was real. From that moment on, sleeping in the room felt like a nightmare. Over time, my friends and I began to find more evidence of strange and unsettling presences in the room. Our belongings would go missing, and strange marks would appear around the room. We couldn't take it anymore, and finally decided to leave that room behind. But the room didn't leave us. Even in the new rooms we moved into, we continued to experience strange occurrences. The dark and eerie energy seemed to follow us. The terrifying memories we lived through in that cursed dorm room still haunt us, leaving deep scars on our minds. This story is one of the darkest and most chilling memories of my university years. The cursed dorm room became a place that taught us what real fear was. It was my first year of university. I had just finished unpacking all of my stuff into my room, and my family had just left. Later on that same day, my roommate finally arrived. And right from the get-go, I knew this kid was the most socially inept person I'd ever met. I introduced myself as Dan, sticking out my arm for a handshake, paused, looked down at my arm as if you didn't understand it first, then laughed and went, "Oh," and gave me an almost dead fish handshake. I had to ask him for his name since he didn't even tell me. When we shook hands, he was Dale. I tried to make small talk, but he just answered my questions with yes or no's, occasionally awkwardly laughing or smiling. Within minutes, we were both just sitting on our beds, on our laptops, not talking to each other. I was upset and planned on requesting to be placed with a different roommate. Anyone would be better than Dale. I thought Dale was just a really awkward kid, but I soon learned he was much more than just that. I met some of the other kids on my floor, and they seemed cool, so that was good. I came back to my dorm after looking around campus, the first night, to find Dale still in the same position he was in when I left. I said, "What's up, Dale?" and he didn't answer, not to my surprise. It was 9:30. I didn't have anything to do, so I turned out the lamp on my side of the room and went to bed. I didn't actually fall asleep anytime soon, though Dale was on his laptop until 3 in the morning. When he finally closed his laptop, I fell asleep pretty quickly, but I woke up within the hour. The blinds to our room had been opened, and the moonlight now creeping into the room made everything visible, including Dale sitting on the side of his bed looking at me. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and said, "Dale, what the hell are you doing?" He whispered back, "Sorry," and laid down. The next morning, I woke up to find Dale had already gotten up. I felt like it was the first time he left the room. It was a Saturday, the first Saturday of the year, meaning orientation, and all the campus festivities during the orientation. As my group was walking by the school gardens, I heard a couple of students ahead of me saying, "What is that kid doing in there?" I saw who they were talking about. It was Dale, literally sitting in the dirt behind a patch of bushes, rubbing the bark of a tree with his hand. The orientation leader didn't notice otherwise. I'm sure she would have said something. I just walked by not saying anything. Eventually, telling the two kids I overheard that he was my roommate as a way to start a conversation and maybe make some friends. They apologized for me. None of us really knew if it was appropriate to laugh or not, but we did. I made friends with those two kids, and we made plans to get together that night. I also learned when I got back to my dorm that the school found another roommate for me. Things seemed to be turning around quickly for the better. I left the room that night to go meet up with the two kids I met. And when I got back, Dale was sitting on the desk chair facing the door. I said, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He said nothing very matter-of-factly. I sat down on my bed and opened my laptop and realized I forgot to lock it. I also realized that all of my emails had been opened emails I was pretty sure I didn't even read, and a bunch of folders of mine had been opened. They all must have snooped through my laptop. When I asked him if he did, he responded no very loudly, half a second after I even finished my question. I could read him like a book. This creepy kid was literally going through my computer. When I was out, I knew he did it, but I didn't pursue it. I was ready to go to bed, so as I went into my bed to look for my pajamas, I felt like my clothing had all been moved around as well. I knew I'd be out of there forever by tomorrow, so I didn't say anything. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a zipper. I sat up and saw Dale on the grounds, going through my bag. I turned the lamp on this time, confronting him about it. He played dumb, saying, "I think you have my toothbrush by mistake." It was the closest thing to wits that he'd shown up, until that point still. I knew he was lying, and I knew something was wrong with him, so I couldn't get physical with him the next day. I met my new roommate in the same building, and everything went well. Sunday night, after having a decent conversation with my roommate, who was no social butterfly, but was miles better than Dale, we both turned to off our lights and went to bed for the third night in a row. I woke up at some off hour of the night to a strange noise. It was a weird clicking noise. It wasn't consistent, but I'd hear it at least twice every 30 seconds. I got up hoping to find something innocent, like a heavy bag, putting pressure on a weak floorboard or even a mouse, but as I scoped out the room, I realized the sound was actually coming from the other side of the door. The nightlight in the common area was always on. So when I looked through the peephole, I was able to see the scalp of the person standing on the other side of our door. They were looking down so I couldn't see their face, but now that I was paying attention, I realized the tiny clicking noises were actually coming from the doorknob. I was sure the person was trying to unlock the door. I dialed the number for the campus police department, and they showed up in under 5 minutes to the common room. And only then did I feel it was safe to open the door. I found the officers to have Dale and cuffs. I had a feeling it was him. I told them everything, that he was my former roommate who was going through my stuff. So I switched dorms, only to find him trying to break into my new dorm. They took him away. I don't know what happened to him after that, but I never saw him again. He either got suspended for the semester or expelled. I got through the rest of my years at university like anybody else. However, the nightmarish experience I had with Dill still pops up in my head every now and then. Hello everyone, I'm Justin. I want to tell you about a terrifying experience I had. During my university years, there was an old dormitory building on campus filled with legendary ghosts and stories everyone talked about. That old dormitory building had gained notoriety with its dark history and hidden secrets. And I, a victim of my own curiosity, stepped through the doors of that building. That night, I was standing in front of the dormitory building with my friends. The campus around us was sleeping silently, and the stars were shining in the sky, while a few of my friends sat on a bench right next to the dormitory building, I gathered my courage and ventured into the dark corridors of the building. At first, everything seemed normal. The corridors were quiet and dark. However, as we went deeper, there was a strange feeling in the air, as if someone was watching us. Finally, I opened a room door. Inside was an old dorm room that seemed abandoned for years. The furniture was covered in dust, and there was an old notebook sitting inside the room. I picked up the notebook and flipped through the pages, and I came across a name, Emily. That was my name. Why was my name written in this old notebook? Why was I here? At that moment, I felt a strange sensation in the room, as if something was standing beside me. I glanced around the dark corners of the room, but couldn't see anything. However, at that moment, I heard a faint whisper entering the room. I turned my ear in that direction and heard the whisper again. Emily. Terrified, I left the room and stepped outside. My friends were still sitting on the bench, and I tried to tell them what had happened, but they thought I was just joking. However, for me, the events were far from over. A few days later, I decided to return to that old dormitory building. This time, I was alone. As I wandered through the corridors, I heard strange noises coming from the room doors. I heard the whisper calling my name again, and I saw a faint light shining from one of the rooms. I hurried towards that room and opened the door. Inside, an old lamp was lit, and in the middle of the room stood a figure that was vaguely visible. As I approached, the figure became clearer, and what I saw horrified me. That figure resembled a student who had disappeared years ago. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with sadness. Suddenly, he reached out to me and held my hand. At that moment, I felt the rise of past fears and sorrows. This student had once lived in this room and disappeared. His spirit still seemed trapped in that room, and I felt compelled to help him. In the following days, I didn't leave that old dormitory building. I did everything I could to release the spirit of the student. I learned his story and erected a monument in his memory. Now, that old dormitory building was silent, and the ghosts were no longer there. However, I couldn't forget what I experienced that night. That room had become a bridge between me and the lost spirit, and that experience would forever haunt me.